A huge welcome to the Transcend and Succeed show. And today I have a lovely lady who's going to talk about Lyme disease, the signs and the symptoms, testing and treatment, and about finding a Lyme literate physician who can help treat the disease. So Rosemary Kelly, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So firstly, can you explain to us what Lyme disease is and how you get it?
Yes, you get Lyme disease from Lyme bacteria. So it is a bacterial infection that can infect your body. It can go to your different organs, including your heart and brain. And basically how you get it is by being bit by a tick that is carrying the Lyme bacteria. And the tick gets it from animals that are carrying the Lyme bacteria. And I live in the state of Maine, and we have a really high incidence of Lyme disease. And that's because we have moose, deer, and mice, and they all carry Lyme disease. So if a tick attaches to one of these animals and bites it, the tick becomes infected with Lyme disease. And then if that tick gets on a person and bites them, it only takes this little tiny tick and a little tiny bite to get that bacteria into your body. And then once it's in your body, it just starts to replicate and spread. And the bacteria, I'll just say this, it looks like a corkscrew, and it has an active phase and a dormant phase. And the dormant phase is it's able to cover itself with a hard coating. And we'll be talking a little bit later on about why it's hard to treat, and that will come into play again.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Very interesting. It is very interesting. So how did you come to do all this research? I mean, and tell us your story about how Lyme disease affected you and how you realized that, somebody in your family had contracted it.
Yeah, I had been aware of Lyme disease even before anybody in my household showed symptoms. I first learned about it from a woman that I worked with. I was a dietitian, and her husband was really, really ill. And for years, they couldn't figure out what was going on with him. He had a heart attack. He was having trouble walking. He had brain fog. And he finally had to quit work. And he was on disability. And they were kind of at their wits' end. And finally, they found out that it was Lyme disease. So I was very aware that it was in Maine and that it could be very serious and debilitating. And by the time he was diagnosed, they did treat him, and he did get a little bit better, but he never really regained his health, which was a little bit scary, actually, to see that, because I had been on that journey with my friend that I worked with for, I think, 2 years before her husband was diagnosed. So I told my husband about that, and he actually read some books. So we were both well-versed, okay, Lyme disease and what the possible symptoms could be, because we knew it took him a long time to get diagnosed. And we thought, oh, maybe we better know what the symptoms are.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, we move to a new town, And 24 years ago, we bought our house in a rural town in Maine where we still live. And we have 6 acres of land, 5 are forests. So my husband decided that he was going to build a trail in the woods so we could enjoy. We all like going into the woods and hiking. And so he said, well, I'm going to build a nice trail and we'll be able to walk in it. And I thought, that's going to be great. So about 3 weeks into that, he discovers a rash on his leg, which can be a symptom of Lyme. That's one of the things that we had read, a bullseye rash can indicate Lyme disease. So he decided to go to the ER because he knew if this is Lyme, I need to get treated right away. And he was told the rash that he had was not indicative of Lyme disease. So he came home, we talked about it, and we both agreed it might be good to get a second opinion. And it was on the weekend, so he decides to go to a walk-in clinic. And they basically said the same thing. Now, this is not indicative of Lyme disease. They gave him steroid cream. So he comes home, and he used the steroid cream, and it did seem to go away. And he wasn't left with any lingering symptoms. And so we thought, okay, I guess it wasn't Lyme disease. You'll find out later on in the talk that it was. But yeah, he was, I think he was still in his 30s. So he was strong and young and healthy. And looking back, we figure, okay, first time that he was exposed to it, his body was probably able to keep it at a level where it didn't make him sick. So that was kind of like the first brush with it, although we didn't know at the time that's what was going on. We just kind of, okay, it was just a weird rash, and we kept going. Do you want to hear? And then I might as well tell you and your viewers at this point, a couple of years later, he had what appeared to be the flu, and it just did not go away. And he went to several physicians, and finally one said, I think you had a bacterial infection the same time you had the flu. And he agreed to give him antibiotics. And my husband had been sick for several months. And and that did seem to help him. He seemed to regain his health. So again, we thought, okay, it was some kind of bacterial lung infection, and the antibiotics took care of it. A few years later, both my husband and I got really sick. And he actually had to reduce his work schedule. He went from full-time to part-time. I was actually a full-time mom. So I was home, and I thought, good thing, because I really even couldn't take care of my son or my house because I was so sick. And we still didn't know at this point it was Lyme disease.
Yeah. Oh, you'd mentioned a couple of symptoms like the rash. What are some other symptoms of Lyme disease that you know of?
Yeah, I can tell you, general symptoms, and I can tell you what we experienced. My husband had really severe fatigue, and he had joint pain, and he had some difficulty breathing. Mine was really completely different symptoms. I had severe dizziness, and it wasn't like a lightheadedness that we think of. It was actually, I would try to walk and the room would literally spin around me. I had the sensation that, I don't know if anybody's done this, but when I was a kid at the amusement park, there'd be like this little spinning and you'd have to walk through that. And that's basically what I felt like. I would, have to grab the walls just to walk around my house. And my sense of smell got super strong. Like I could smell everything. So I realized there are odors that we don't smell. Like my husband and my son would go grocery shopping and bring the groceries in, and everything smelled like it had soaked in perfume. We'd actually have to take the cereal out of the box, wash the plastic bag that held the cereal, and throw the box away.
Well,
Because it just made me, it wasn't just a matter of smelling it. It actually made me sick to my stomach, and I got sicker, and it increased my brain fog. So I had a lot of brain fog. I had difficulty sleeping, which at the time I didn't know was a sign of Lyme disease, but later on I found that out. And I was trying everything. And if I slept 2 hours a night, I considered that a good night's sleep, which was pretty sad. But, you know, I think there was one stretch I felt like I didn't sleep for 4 or 5 days. And I think, again, it was the bacteria had actually affected my neurology. And so I wasn't able to fall asleep. I had so much brain fog. Um, Something just came to my mind. I forgot what I wanted to say. It was something about the brain fog. Headaches, pressure, almost like you have a sinus infection. I had a lot of that in the front, that kind of pressure. That was another symptom. Don't want to leave anything out. So basically, yeah, in the beginning, early symptoms of Lyme disease can be, some joint pain, headache. Um, you can have some flu-like symptoms, mild flu-like symptoms. And then as it progresses into the more severe symptoms, some people actually have paralysis. They have memory problems, vision problems, and your sense of hearing can get really strong. I didn't have that, but your sense of smell, and that's one that I had. So basically, my husband and I both had symptoms of like we had long-term Lyme disease. So we realize now that in reality, we were both exposed to Lyme. We both had it before we started having these severe symptoms. I don't ever really remember having the symptoms like my husband, but when we both got so sick, I got so sick so quickly and had the really severe symptoms that when I finally was diagnosed, I was told, well, you've probably been carrying Lyme bacteria for some time. And then this last time that you got bit, it just exploded and devastated your immune system, and you just couldn't get it down to a level that you didn't have severe symptoms. So,
Well, it sounds very debilitating if not, caught early. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, the medical profession, what do they look for and how do they diagnose Lyme disease? What would they look for? I mean, that you said
yeah.
that the nurse or the doctor had said that the rash wasn't indicative of Lyme disease. So
Right, right. It's very difficult, and even though we live in Maine, where we have a very high incidence, we have the highest in the United States, it still doesn't seem to be on the radar like I wish it was. But there are some issues that make it difficult to diagnose. A lot of people get no rash with Lyme disease, and they typically look for what they call a bullseye rash. And now we know that it doesn't have to look like a bullseye rash. It can be completely irregular. It can be small. It can be rather large. So there's really no uniform rash to really diagnose Lyme disease. And Lyme disease does mimic a lot of other diseases. Like some of the things that people get diagnosed with is, I actually got, so I know somebody that was initially diagnosed with MS. arthritis is a common misdiagnosis because
Mm-hmm.
of the joint
The
pain.
joints, yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Neurological problems because people have the brain fog and they think it's dementia. I think we all know Chris Christopherson, the country music singer, and
Uh-huh.
he was diagnosed with dementia. And after years of thinking he had dementia, he was actually diagnosed with Lyme disease. And once he was treated, the dementia symptoms all went away. So,
There you go.
yeah, so it's really, and in mine and my husband's case, he was diagnosed when we were really, really sick. He was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome
Mm-hmm.
and asthma because he was having some difficulty breathing. And I was diagnosed with, because I have allergies and it was in the summer, I was diagnosed with like a sinus infection. I actually was given some antibiotics and it helped a little bit, but as soon as I stopped taking them, I rapidly got worse. And then nothing seemed to really help me. So, yeah, so we went on kind of limping for months,
Oh.
with the wrong diagnosis and the wrong treatment. My husband, they did give him an inhaler for the shortness of breath, but it didn't do a whole lot for him because it really wasn't getting at the root of
The
the
root cause, yeah,
problem.
absolutely. Mm,
Yeah.
okay. So what did you do then? The antibiotics weren't working. Did you decide to, take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and go and investigate it for yourself and see if there were other ways that you could treat yourself, really, if the typical doctor or, with
Mm,
the pharmaceuticals that we have nowadays, if they weren't helping. So what
mm.
did you do?
Yeah, exactly, because I can't really remember how many, I guess, call them mainstream physicians and specialists we saw. It was a lot. And some of them were very kind people and they did want to help us. They just weren't thinking Lyme disease or that just wasn't on the radar.
Mhm.
So, how it all came about, I actually started having some arm pain. And so I started investigating online different modalities to help with pain. And there was one Bowen therapy that I wanted to try out. So I was Googling Bowen therapy and seeing if there's anybody in my area. And I did. I found a naturopath that practiced this Bowen therapy that I wanted to try because I was having neck pain and arm pain. And my husband had some of that too. And again, we didn't know that could be an indicator of Lyme disease, but it was all related to that kind of pain that Lyme can cause.
Mhm.
So when I went to see her, I explained about the pain and I started telling her about some of my other symptoms because I was actually having trouble in her office. And I said, "Your office is making me sicker." And
Oh.
so she said, "Okay." She was really nice. We took 2 chairs and we went outside and we sat outside. Luckily, it was summertime. And so she said, "Well, I think I know. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on with you because I'm seeing a lot of this and people aren't being diagnosed." She lives in an area near Acadia National Park, if anybody's heard of that. It's a big park in Maine where people go hiking and we have lots of tourists. And she said she was seeing a lot of people from that area coming into her saying that they had seen several physicians and they were really ill. And she said it's Lyme disease. And I was kind of floored. I thought, what? And so we talked a little bit about the plan, but I immediately came home and told my husband, I said, "You need to see her." And I told him what she told me. So he made an appointment and went in and explained his symptoms to her. And she said the same thing. She said, I'm pretty much 100% certain that you have Lyme disease." So, okay. So, because my husband actually had a blood test called the ELISA test, and it had come back negative. And at the time, we did not know that test is only about 50% accurate. And the naturopath told us, she said, well, the ELISA test is only about 50% accurate. So, and if it comes back negative, they don't do any more testing. If it comes back positive, they give you something called the Western blot just to make sure you really have Lyme disease. So a lot of people fall through the cracks if they only have the ELISA test.
Mhm.
So she said to us, she said, what you really need to have is the Western blot. And she had some other blood markers that she wanted to test. And we said, oh, okay, we got to find out what's going on. So my husband's test actually did come back like bright positive. She said, yeah, there's no doubt you have Lyme disease. My Western blot actually came back. She says, wow, yours is clean. Yours looks negative. And I thought, oh, and I said, then what's going on? She says, it's Lyme disease. She said, but
She was convinced, was she?
there's some other blood markers that I took that indicate Lyme disease. And she said, what's going on with you? She said, I've seen this before. She said, the Western blot is actually testing your body's reaction to the Lyme disease, not for the Lyme bacteria itself. It's your immune response. Okay. And she just said, I think that's why you're so sick and can barely, because I was doing online with her and through the phone calls. I could not get to her office. I was so sick. And she said, I think your body just gave out, your immune system. So she said, that's why the Western blot appears that you don't have Lyme disease. And I said, okay, I understand what you're saying now. But she says, that's my recommendation, that we treat it as Lyme disease. And she is, like I said, a naturopath. She said, I do use antibiotics. My license in Maine will allow me to do that. And I also have homeopathy, and we can talk about those remedies. And she kind of left it up to us what we wanted to do. So that's how we got the diagnosis. So kind of a long way around.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think now's a good time. We'll just take a quick break. I've put Rosemary's information on screen here for anybody that wants to capture it, but we will be right back, so stay with us.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
Ross, your host for Mindful Mondays, every Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, where you can embark on a transformative journey of self-care and ultimate happiness. Tune in to the Voyage to Vitality channel on the Achieve TV network. Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Be there, be mindful, and join us on E360 TV.
And welcome back to the Transcend and Succeed show. I'm here with Rosemary Kelly today, and we're talking about Lyme disease. But before we continue our conversation, Rosemary, you told me that you are holding on to some things from the 1960s. So do tell us what that is.
Yes. I'm sure everybody, if you didn't see the Barbie movie, you probably heard about the Barbie movie that was so popular over the summer. So I asked my husband and my young adult son if they'd go see the Barbie movie with me, and they agreed. And we had a really good time. And so I had a surprise for them when we came home. I went to my closet and I said, I have a Barbie from 1966, original ribbon in her hair. And Skipper was also in the Barbie movie, and she is Barbie's younger sister. Oops. And Skipper, this one is from 1964, and my Barbie is 1966. And then Barbie's even littler sister, Tootie, and I think, I'm not sure if she's 64 or 1966. I'm trying to think back. I got these at Christmas, and I think I got Skipper and Tootie together, so they would both be 1964. So
Wow. And when I read that, I knew all about Barbie, but I didn't understand who Skipper and Tootie were. So I Googled it, and Tootie looks really wicked. She has quite a wicked expression on her face. It
She
made
does.
me laugh.
A little bit, I don't know, a little bit like she's possessed. I don't know.
A little devilish look, yeah.
I know.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so we were talking about the naturopath left it up to you to decide. So what was your decision?
Right. So my husband actually did take a combination of, in the beginning, he did take some antibiotics, and then he started doing the homeopathy. I decided not to take antibiotics and just try her homeopathy remedies. And the way that this naturopath, I guess, treated Lyme disease is with something she called the UNDA remedies, UNDA. And she explained it to me like it's actually, she called it a drainage system. It really detoxifies your body and optimizes the organs. So your body is working at its optimal. And because she was explaining that a lot of the symptoms of Lyme actually come from I guess the best way to say it is like the waste products from the Lyme bacteria. And if you can't detoxify that, you get gummed up, junked up with all this stuff that makes you sick. So I thought that sounded good. I thought that made sense, that I needed a good detoxification. And so I started on that immediately. It took several rounds, but I finally did start feeling better. And I had signs that I was detoxing. And she was excited about that. She said, okay, that's a good sign. Your body is detoxifying. And now it can start to fight the bacteria itself once we get all this junk out of you. And my husband got significantly better, but he didn't get completely well. And she did some more testing and found out that he actually had what we call co-infections. He had what's called Babesia and Bartonella, and they are actually becoming more prominent. They seem to go along with Lyme disease. I'm not sure why, but they are becoming more prominent in Maine. I'm hearing more and more about the co-infections. So we assume that's one of the reasons he wasn't getting completely well. And she wasn't, at that point, I'm still in contact with her, so I know she's doing some other things now. But at the time, because this was, oh gosh, let me figure this out. My son's 24. Yeah, this was like 14, 15 years ago. And we were just kind of learning about the co-infections. And she did do some homeopathy with him and got a little bit better. But we did look at some other things for him, and we found an outpatient clinic with what we call a Lyme literate MD physician. And that's pretty much all he was doing, is treating Lyme disease and the co-infections. So he did that, I think, for 8 weeks. And there they actually gave him IV antibiotics. And he got IV vitamins and minerals just to try to boost his immune system. He got a lot of oral supplements as well, herbal supplements. And he also got IV glutathione. Again, that's a very potent detoxifier. So that kind of went along with what our naturopath had said. So he did feel better in 8 weeks, but they did caution him and said, you're going to continue to get better. And he did, because when he came home, I thought, But his body, again, it had to get stronger, just kind of work on it. Because they did say with him, because they suspected at that point that he'd probably had it, I don't know, like 15 years or something. And they said, your body, you may never completely get rid of the bacteria. You just want to stay. He still takes glutathione through the mouth because it's good just to make sure the body is detoxified and kind of keeps it at bay. And they said, because your body always may be working to keep this bacteria down at a level that doesn't affect you. So, so there was a lot of different things that he had to do, but it was so much more complicated for him. He had just had it for so long.
Just so sick. Yeah, a long time to recover, right?
It did. It took, it really did. Before he told me that he said he felt really as strong as he had before. It was probably a few years even after the treatment before he really said, he was a lot better and he was working full time again and everything. But it took a while for him to really say, I'm as strong as I was before I contracted Lyme disease. Yeah.
So how long did you take the remedies from the naturopath for?
That's a good question. It was several months. Let's see. It was probably, I would say, I started seeing her in September. I would say 6 months. And I started to feel significantly better. And I would have, even after that, I would have little, I guess, ups and downs with my health. I had continued to kind of go up and down. And she said, that's probably normal. We'll just keep at it. So I did. And probably, I don't think it was quite a full year, but close to the year mark when I really felt like, okay, I wasn't getting these dips like it was kind of rearing up in my body and trying to get me again, that I really felt like, okay, it's gone. My head was completely clear. I didn't have any more brain fog. And that was such a relief. That was the most terrifying, I think, of anything. Just feeling like I almost felt like there were bugs in my brain, like there was activity and almost like something gnawing away at it. And that was really terrifying. So that was such a relief when that finally went away completely, I felt like I've got this thing now. It's can't get me. We've got it. And then I gradually got better and got stronger. So I felt like, okay, I'm back to my normal baseline health.
Well, it doesn't sound very pleasant at all, but I mean, I think 6 months. I mean, 6 months is great considering the length of time, the number of years that you both carried that infection. I think 6 months is fabulous.
It is. It was. I was thrilled, to say the least. That I was thrilled because I read stories now, and it's really difficult for me to read them, and people will talk about that brain fog like I had, and I know how miserable really that is. And they've had that for years. And I can remember thinking, nobody can live like this for years. I can't do this. And I had a 10-year-old son. And of course, my husband and I, we wanted to get better because we wanted to get better, and feel better. But we also had a 10-year-old son, and we thought, what kind of life is this going to be for him to see both his parents really ill and not be able to really participate in his life? And that just added another layer that was just sort of, for me, just terrifying, because I thought, I had moments, sometimes I thought, as sick as, I was surprised you could feel that bad and still be alive. That's how awful it was at some times.
Yeah. I wonder, did you ever have the opportunity to go back to the medical profession, to your doctor or your healthcare workers, and actually sit down and explain to them how bad this was, how you've actually managed to heal using these remedies? How did they embrace that?
I actually did do that with some of them. Yes, I did. And some, I will say, were open to it. One in particular, that I had a nice conversation with her, and I asked her, I told her about the symptoms, and I said, will you help us, get the word out? And she said, yes. And I asked her, there was a movie at the time, Under Our Skin, and she watched it. And she got back to me, and she thanked me for the information. And she said, I really realized that the information that I have been looking at isn't accurate. And I needed to see this story from people that's had Lyme disease. So, because she was one of them that really did try to help me, but she just didn't know what to do. But she was very caring. So, and that's why I approached her first, because I thought, I think she's going to be open-minded. She wants to really help people. And she was, and she said, I'm going to look for these symptoms from now on, and I'm going to do testing. And she did. So that was really good. Some of the others, I think they listened, but I don't think they totally heard me. So I tried, but
and
really
that's the way it is, though, isn't it? I find that sometimes if it's not being taught to them at medical school, they're really not open to it. Or I think the belief is that other things don't exist that can help with that. And like you said, some of them are very much open to it, and other ones, you just can't get information and allow them to see it. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hey, that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Yes.
So if someone thinks they may have Lyme disease, how do they go about finding somebody that can help them?
Yeah. It's a lot better than it was when we were going through it, my husband and I. If you suspect, you have some of these symptoms, and if you've been, I'll just kind of explain some of the areas where you may come into contact with ticks. Ticks like shady, wet areas. So if you live in a desert kind of environment, probably aren't too many ticks there. But if you live where there's lots of trees, like Maine, 90% of our state is covered in forest. So that's one of the reasons we have a lot of ticks. The other reasons is our winters are a lot milder than they used to be. So mice are breeding year round and they carry Lyme disease. Ticks are breeding year round now. We don't go into deep freezes anymore for days and days. So some of it is your environment, to think about your environment where you live. Are there shady, wet areas? Ticks can hide, get under leaves. You have to be really careful in Maine in the fall when the leaves fall, because the ticks love to get under the leaves, and kids roll in the leaves. And so things that I did as a child, I didn't let my son do those things. And if you do, you really have to do checks. So when you're trying to evaluate, could it be Lyme disease? Yeah, I want you to think about your symptoms, but also, look in your environment. Are you around places where you think there would be a tick population? Are there deer and moose and mice like we have in Maine? Or do you? And the other thing too is, do you have a cat or a dog that goes through the woods that may pick up a tick and come back? And so you have a tick. But if you look at those things and you think about your symptoms and you really think, yeah, I want to check this out and I want to go to somebody that knows what they're doing. If you go to LymeDisease.org, it's really neat. You can do a search in your area and all the Lyme literate caregivers will come up. There are some naturopaths. There are medical doctors. There's nurse practitioners. There's a lot of different kind of caregivers on that site. But they're all very in tune to Lyme disease, and they're going to listen to you. They're going to do the proper testing. And the best that we have right now is the Western blot. There actually is a lot of research going on to get a simpler, quick, cheaper blood test. And that's kind of frustrating, but hopefully that will come about. The other thing that can be really helpful too, if you can find a Lyme disease support group locally, I can guarantee you all those people are going to know who the Lyme literate caregivers are. So you could contact somebody in that, or go to one of their meetings and ask them how they were diagnosed, who they're seeing. And I know they'd be more than happy to help you. And if you want to contact me, I've kind of collected some resources as well, and I'd be happy to just share those with you, like the clinic that my husband went to. Happy to share that information with anybody that can benefit from that.
There you go. 3 different ways if you think you've contracted Lyme disease. Okay, maybe you can answer me this question, because this is my curiosity. Talking about ticks, my understanding of ticks is it's not really a bite. Don't they just burrow? Do they burrow in and maybe they'll leave the head in there? Did you feel that? Did you ever know that had happened?
No, not at the time that I got sick. This is really kind of strange. I have pulled a tick out of me. I did actually feel something one day, like itchy. And I pulled up my shirt and I did see a tick embedded into my stomach. Mm-hmm. And I took a tick remover that I had bought. My son was a Cub Scout. And there was a park ranger. His son was a Cub Scout. So he did a talk and he talked about how to properly remove a tick. And I don't know if I just show it. It kind of looks like a plastic teaspoon with a small portion cut out of it. So if you scrape that against your skin and you come across the tick and just keep scraping and kind of pull, it'll take the head out, because you're right. You don't want to leave the head in there because, yeah, from what I understand, they sort of inject saliva into you, and that's what, yeah, it's not a pleasant thing.
A little goosebumps here. Not
And
nice
that,
goosebumps.
yeah, and that is what carries the Lyme bacteria. So you want to get the head out
Mhm.
too. And sometimes you don't. You know, some people take tweezers and they do okay with it, but you really have to pull straight up. If you're on an angle, you run the risk of leaving part of the tick in there, and you don't want to do that. You do, yeah, no. But when I got so sick, no, my husband and I, neither one of us
Didn't
found it.
realize.
We had just walked in a field where there had been a path, but there was some tall grass, and we figure he must have brushed against the grass, and a tick must have been hanging on and just latched onto one of us, because we wonder if there was one tick that got on one of us and then went to the other one. You know, we don't know, but I assume we got it when we were walking through that field. And
The blighters. So they are. Oh,
yeah,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah, we were relieved. Our son never showed any symptoms of it.
That's great.
So, yeah, that was a relief, because I did see children at the clinic where my husband was, and that was heart-wrenching to see.
I can well imagine. Is it something that can only be given to you by this tick, or is it something that, so could your husband have passed it to you just through touch or anything like that, or is it just from the tick itself?
Yeah, there is some controversy there. The one thing that is emerging that looks pretty strong to me, the evidence, basically the most common way is the tick, but it does appear that women are giving, if they're carrying the Lyme bacteria, it can be transferred to the baby when they're carrying the fetus, so that they're actually born with Lyme disease. And there was, again, somebody, I think he was 20 years old, at the clinic, and he'd always been very ill his whole life, and that's what they were suspecting, that he probably got it in utero from his mom. And he was in a wheelchair. He was really debilitated from it. And we left before he did, but he was somewhat better. But yeah, I don't know. So that looks fairly strong to me, that it can be given from mother to child. There are some other studies looking, like you say, saliva. Is it carried? If you kiss them, can you get it? And I really don't know.
Don't know just yet. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good information just to be careful about.
Yeah.
So tell us, Rosemary, then, what do you want people to learn from your journey with Lyme disease?
Yeah, it's one thing, don't give up. It is really difficult when you have sort of what you think of as like an invisible mystery illness, is what they said we had, like a mystery illness. It's because one thing, you're sick, physically ill, and that's exhausting physically and emotionally, and you're trying to advocate for yourself. It's really difficult to do that. If I rallied a little bit, I would try to advocate for us. My husband was able to rally some. He would advocate for us. You may need to get help and support. You may have to reach out to family and friends. I did some of that. So you do have somebody to advocate. Yeah, I know how hard that is. I've been through it. One of the things that I did is, somehow I just kept telling myself, I just need to take some kind of step. I wasn't sure how we were going to find our way out of this, but I thought I just have to just some small step to take the next step, and I felt like I'm going to find the right path. So that's what I would say. There was a sense, and when I say this, I don't mean you give up. I surrendered to the fact that I had something instead of just wanting to teleport to the future. I thought, no, I can't do that. So I had a real sense of, okay, I really, one day I can remember just surrendering to the process and thinking, this is really hard, but this is what is happening. And in that moment, I just felt so much better. I felt like I'm going to find a way out of this. I just know I am. Not sure how, but it's going to be shown to me. I just need to take one small step. And that's basically what I did. And things did start to fall in place. And we got ourselves out of that. And I really leaned into my intuition and my spirituality. And that's what really gave me the strength to see some purpose in this, what I was going through. That was the one thing I said to myself, oh, when I get through this, I'm going to use this experience to help other people. And that will be the good thing that came out of this. And that's what I look at, like, that's why I went through that, so I could learn these things. So yeah.
Tell us about the work that you do then, that you can help people with. How has Lyme disease shaped that?
Yeah. In a lot of ways. Because when you're so sick, like I've said, you're dealing with the physical illness, plus you're dealing with all the emotional stress of it. And I really thought how spirituality and my belief in the transpersonal really helped me surrender and find my way out of that. So I thought, when I get through this, I'm going to look for some transpersonal modalities, things that I can bring spirituality in, and I'm going to look for things that have been verified. And so basically that's what I've done with the Bengston Energy, that I basically think of that as healing the physical. And that is purely an energetic modality. It has been studied. It's verified by research. So it's really kind of interesting. And then the other thing I do is something called PSYCH-K. And that is a transpersonal modality. And what that basically means is that I bring spirit or the divine into the interaction with my client. So it's just not me and the client. We have the divine, and we look at emotions. And I have helped people dealing with physical illnesses just get their emotions into a better place. So they're stronger emotionally, which helps them be stronger physically, and they can, some of them are really great. They're able to advocate for themselves. I'm like amazed. They come back. It's like, wow, they're like a different person. So, and it really makes a difference for them. And that's something, and I listen to people because I learn from myself that everybody needs to be heard. And and sometimes you don't feel like you're getting that. And that's the space that I hold for my clients, telling me what is going on, and really hear their story, and be there to support them.
Yeah, well, you've been through it, you know the support that's needed, firsthand. And I think that's great. And Rosemary, we're just, got about 60 seconds left. But your information and your education that you've given us has been fantastic. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, honestly. Now I understand what Lyme disease is, really. What have you got going on in the next little while? Is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm looking into, thank you for asking, because, Yeah, I'm going to continue with the Bengston and then the PSYCH-K, and I'm going to do more education in the PSYCH-K. There are other levels that you can take, and I'm really looking forward to taking some of those upper levels and increasing my skills to help even more people. So, and I'm so excited to do that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've got planned, traveling and
Great.
increasing my skills. Yeah. Yeah.
Superb, superb. Just to let the viewers know, this is Rosemary's website in the top left corner, and the QR code. You can book a discovery call if you'd like to discuss anything with her related to Lyme disease or anything that you think she can help you with. But for now, sweetheart, thank you so much. I've had a great conversation, magic information. I'm sure everybody will get, that they'll really enjoy this conversation. So thank you. And I want to say thank you to the viewers as well. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. And we will see you again. Thank you, Rosemary. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.